Okay, I don't know. Okay, let's try it again. Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I can't hear myself. Thank you so much. Okay. And this is so important. And of course, everyone knows this is 2,175 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room because he was a whistleblower and taken downstairs to the arms room, a secure location where they took his life and then they desecrated his body, stole it off of Fort Bliss, and took it over to Mexico for disposal. And we have 6 years. Um, we have been putting this investigation, what happened to our son, um, together. And it's, very clear. We had all the evidence that he was reporting on trafficking, okay, like the child trafficking and the drug trafficking and all of that. And then it grew to the Walmart mass shooting, because everything in Richard's case that we were investigating was connected to the Walmart mass shooting. And we learned that the Walmart mass shooting, we gathered enough evidence to confirm that it was orchestrated, that the crime scene was tampered with and staged. We know that this was an orchestrated uh, mass shooting to divert attention from the audits and the investigations that were triggered by Richard's whistleblower reports. We learned that it was used also politically, weaponized to attack President Trump uh, right before the 2020 election, uh, to sabotage his election, and at the same time energize or lift up or get um, donations for Beto O'Rourke. We know that. We've confirmed all that. That's uh, not speculation, okay? That is hard evidence, because, explain Michael Mayella, right? Explain Michael Mayella, the brother in law of the alleged Walmart mass shooter, Patrick Crucius, being in the DA's office, being in the FBI, being um, in Walmart cybersecurity simultaneously, and also explain David uh, Frost and Todd Petkus, the lead investigators of the Walmart mass shooting. And I can go on for a long time about that. And Nadal Baim, explain him having family connections to the DA's office and the AUSA and on Fort Bliss. So, the evidence is so high, it's a mountain. And it confirms that Richard's case and that he was killed because of what he was exposing connected to the Walmart mass shooting and the election tampering and fraud that came out of that. That was orchestrated to do exactly that while killing 23 people and injuring 22 more. So, that was absolutely, has been absolutely confirmed. And now, it never, we always think, okay, now we've got it. Now we've got it. But God doesn't stop there. God has been exposing even more. And clearly, with Richard's car, with the connections with the car dealer, the connections to the fraudulent paperwork on Richard's car, not because of Richard, but because of the dealership and targeting young soldiers. And um, especially Richard, okay, because he didn't want, I know for a fact that he didn't want a car. He wanted to be deployed again because he was trying to save money and, cars are expensive. Insurance for cars are expensive for a 20-year-old male. Um, but we also know that this tied to the fuel distribution on Fort Bliss, that the people involved in waving the carrot in front of Richard of a cheap car were connected to the fuel distribution on Fort Bliss. And so that has put up red flags a long time ago. And now, with all of the arrests going on and the discovery of Alejandro de la Vega Foster, the El Paso cartel operative, and double agent, and fuel theft, being married to fuel theft thief Paul Foster, and of course, the place where all evidence indicates Richard's body was disposed of at the Plenitude Narco Crematorium that's connected to the Purchase Funeral Home monopoly, transnational monopoly at the border. Maybe that's a little bit of an over exaggeration that it's a total monopoly, but it's pretty close. And having that kind of crime on their hands, handling the Walmart mass shooters' bodies, now having the evidence being part of the funeral home scam, but then getting the evidence and holding on to the evidence. It's Purchase Funeral Homes that have the over 400 bodies were put in their refrigerators. Um, and tied to Argo Oil and Gas that share a address with El Paso Matters, who was attacking us and our son. Um, eh, you know, one thing led to the other, that clearly the evidence kept piling up also, that this is about fuel theft. This is about fuel theft at a very high level when you're talking about the Sinaloa cartel, the CJNG cartel, the Juárez cartel, the El Paso cartel, meaning Alejandro de la Vega Foster, Woody Hunt, Rick Francis, Paul Foster, and it goes on and connects um, into the United States. And of course, with Maru Campos, the El Chapo fentanyl governor of Chihuahua, her connection with all of this fuel theft, with bringing in Cesar Paneche, a confirmed fuel thief through his group at Carvel, Alejandro de la Vega having Arco gas stations. So Western Refinery being bought out by Marathon, and then Paul Foster buying into Marathon. It's just uh, so much fuel theft. And then the Jetsons, their fuel theft going through the same pipeline of El Paso, connecting the whole Mormon mafia. Of course, Connell Wetton being the FBI there in El Paso, having the power to stop the fuel theft and the trafficking, but that's not what he's doing. He's leaking Richard's whistleblower of Fort Bliss to the cartels, and the next thing you know, Richard is murdered. He's responsible for Richard's murder, okay, because he leaked Richard's identity to the cartels, and it being infiltrated on Fort Bliss, okay. So this has to do with the trafficking, all kinds of criminal trafficking, the Walmart mass shooting, and the election tampering, and then the Huachicol. And there's two types of Huachicols that I understand, the two types of fuel theft. Sorry, I just got done explaining this. Nobody could hear me, so I want to do it again. Um, and it's really important because you have the Huachicol, which I described as a stagecoach type of uh, theft, right? Where you can either tap into the Pemex pipeline and steal it that way, or you go with guns and hold guns to drivers' heads of these tanker trucks. And it's very violent. Um, uh, and they do it all the time. And so that's what you would call the Huachicol, okay? Stealing the fuel that way. Uh, but Jetson's case, the Mormon mafia Jetson family that stole millions and millions and millions um, of fuel, they didn't do it the Huachicol way. They did it the fiscal Huachicol. Fiscal, they did it through Texas, through fraudulent paperwork. They brought it back into Mexico with not having to pay taxes on 90% of it. Okay. So they made, they want everyone else to pay the taxes on the fuel, right? And they want you to pay high taxes on the fuel for their theft, but they themselves don't want to pay for the fuel and they don't want to pay for the taxes. And then they want to use the government infrastructure to transport their fuel. Okay. So they don't even want to pay, and it's not even their fuel, it's stolen fuel. They want the government infrastructure to pay for everything, including the transportation of the fuel. So we know through our investigation that Richard's case had to do something, was connected to the distribution of fuel on Fort Bliss. We know that they were stealing so much on Fort Bliss, so much so that they were using the tactical move storage units, the storage units that they can fill up, put on trucks, take it over, put it on ships, and transport it around the world. From uniforms to MREs to guns to children to, as reported, to everything, drug everything. Um, but Fort Bliss also has a rail system, and until now, it was not connected to Union Pacific Rail. Okay, which is right there in El Paso. But now they are building, they might even be done. But the last I heard, they were building, and it was Veronica Escobar that really alerted us to this, because Veronica Escobar was on Fort Bliss praising these 4.3 extra miles of rail to be connected, connect the Fort Bliss rail system to the El Paso Pacific Union rail system. And that was scary that she was so happy about this, because she is up to no good. She's the El Paso cartel operative. She is, a very, very evil person, and absolutely does the serves the El Paso cartel rather than her constituents. And you don't have to believe me, you can just see the comments by her constituents. She is not liked at all. I don't even know how she got voted in. I don't, because when I read comments of her constituents, they're not too nice. Okay. So, so looking into this rail system, and then having the new news today of the former governor of Baja California being arrested along with others. There's 25 warrants out for arrest of this largest fiscal Huachicol. Okay. Fiscal Huachicol. When you hear Fiscal Huachicol, that means that fuel came from Texas, either from a refinery or from stolen fuel in Texas brought to Mexico. And so this former governor tells you something, that Mexico is willing to arrest a former governor. Okay. So that means that Maru Campos can be next, because we know that she was involved in this fiscal Huachicol and Huachicol because of Grupo Carvel, because of Cesar Perneche, her attorney general, that was handpicked by Alejandro de la Vega Foster and Paul Foster and Woody Hunt and them, to bring him up from Mexico City and make him the prosecutor for Chihuahua, Mexico, and was caught in fuel theft. Okay. His mansion was raided in Chihuahua. He was caught in fuel theft. He's hiding out in, we know where he is, in Texas. And that's just another example of the fuel theft, but that connects Maru Campos to it. And now, with this huge fiscal Huachicol by this former governor of Baja California, they were doing it by rail. They were doing it by rail. And I know a little bit about rail because when I was just starting out working, I knew DOS. I was always a little handy with the computer. And I knew MS DOS. This is before Windows. And I worked for a granary. Yes, silos, granary. And we would transport grains and all across the country. And the best way to transport grains all around the country was through rail. Much, 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 much cheaper. I mean, I had to enter all the data. So it's so much more um I want to say economical to transport bulk items and fuel in tanks via the rail system than through trucker tanks. It's much more expensive to transport by truck. Um, so to have these rails transport all of that fuel to Baja California and connect it, and it was coming out of Texas, okay, tells you something. And to connect this rail system to the Pacific Union that is directly connected to the Mexican rail system, straight path into Chihuahua, into the hands of the cartels, the transnational terroristic organizations such as the CJNG, the Sinaloa cartel, and the Juárez cartel, now all designated as transnational terroristic organizations, is very alarming. You can tell they're getting desperate. This needs to be spread everywhere. They cannot hook Fort Bliss up to the Pacific Union. It is just begging for cartel fiscal Huachicol activity at a grand uh, percent, and not paying taxes. And it's so bad. And, you can say, oh, wait a minute, President Trump is a president right now. But you have to understand, at that border area, we are infiltrated. Infiltrated. In Texas, we are infiltrated. Maru Campos signed the treasonous treaty with who? With the governor of Texas. Okay? And you have Alejandra de la Vega Foster with huge assets that she wants to protect, ill-gotten, totally ill-gotten, but she wants to protect them. And her husband with the refinery and all of that, he wants to protect his ill-got gains. And so having so many compromised individuals in the agencies and institutions and our military, okay, because of the Mormon Mafia. The Mormon Mafia is a huge aspect of this in the CIA, in the FBI, and in our military. And I know that for a fact because I'm my dad was 23 years in the military, my husband over 30 years, my son in the military, um, you know, a whole life in and around the military, and I know that there is a Mormon mafia. Okay. And so, and we know that at the border, we have the Mormon mafia operative, FBI agent Connell Wetton, who leaked Richard's identity to the cartel and protects all the trafficking. Look, I put it this way, he is the Strait of Hormuz for the cartel, okay? For the El Paso cartel. Connell Wetton is the gateway. El Paso, I guess, would be the Strait of Hormuz for the El Paso cartel. But you have to have someone that opens those gates and protects it from any kind of scrutiny. And that is Connell Wetton. So Connell Wetton is like the Strait of Hormuz for the El Paso cartel to allow all the trafficking through, to allow the Huachicol and the Fiscal Huachicol coming both ways through. And I think that that is a good analogy for people to understand that this is about total theft, and so much theft from Fort Bliss, because Fort Bliss, I mean, the Pentagon has $1 trillion, way over $1 trillion budget. It's probably more this year. And so the military uses so much fuel. Is that all fuel really necessary, or is so much of it has so much of that fuel been stolen? Okay, stolen. And then, of course, we know about the Fast and Furious. We know about the Iran Contra. the guns for drugs. We know the smuggling and trafficking, and the ammunition, truckloads of ammunition. What goes on the rails? What fits on the rails? We know in Juarez there was a couple engaged in this drug trafficking, that when they raided the house, what did they find? An anti-tank rocket launcher. Okay, an anti-tank rocket launcher. So, this what they can steal on a rail is far greater than they can on trucks and in these tactical move storage units. Uh, it is really a threat to our national security because it's an economic threat. All of this theft, the high price of fuel, the high price that we pay at our grocery store because of the high price of fuel, all of the theft in our national security that um, creates a division because we know that they are compromised in the trust level for our military and our CIA and, well, intelligence and our infrastructure is, very low. We just have lost so much trust, and then the operatives come in and break that trust even more with a lot of their false narratives, right? They use propaganda to take our patriotism away, and we just can't let them do that. We have to stand side by side with President Trump. We have to report all of this. You heard it yesterday. They were keeping intelligence reports from him. They were running a parallel government, right? A parallel government. And we know that through Maru Campos and Governor Greg Abbott's treasonous treaty, that is evidence of a parallel government attempt, which, destroys both the sovereignty of Mexico and the United States. So, it's all very, very connected. And there's so much news that I have for everyone. Um, and, I just want to verify it all. But this arrest of this Baja California former governor is huge because it really puts the fiscal Huachicol on the table now. We understand it now. We understand that they're trying to avoid taxes. That's why it was the U.S. Treasury that designated the Juarez cartel as a uh, FTO, and you know they can they might have protection in the law enforcement, criminal law enforcement, but not with the taxes. So even the best thieves and criminals have been caught because of the tax laws. So you might not like the tax laws, but they can be very useful in catching these mega cartel criminals and organized crime criminals. So, let's answer any of your questions here or statements. Laura, thank you so much. And thank you for being patient with me. Um, I had to restart my computer. I don't know why you couldn't hear me. It seemed like everything was working. And, so I don't know what happened there. So thank you so much for sticking with me. Laura Rodriguez, thank you so much. Enrique, yeah, thank you so much. I know you're very tired. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, yeah, look into the Mormon Kingston clan. Yeah. Mitt Romney family. Yeah. Muslims and Mormons are terrorists. And I want to say that I call them Mohammedanisms, right? um, and the Mormons, they are working together. It's very clear that they are working together, and they must have some real likeness in what their intentions are and their goals, because they are absolutely working together. Um, yeah, wow. Yeah, they want our children, and I did post that up about Mandami saying, "Oh, yeah, we're going to give you childcare for a night out, you can go and we want your children for a night." No, I don't think so, Mandami. You're not gonna get my child. I mean, that's how I would respond. I can just put my child to bed and turn on the TV and watch a movie. I am not going to let you have my child. No, 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 no. Because he is tied to this whole criminal gang. Okay, he is. He is tied to them. I've made that. Though I showed that evidence already. And that would be the Hart family and Hart Child Care. And then when I talked on the phone with Danae, this is in 2020, what was she doing? Child care. Of course, she's insurance, I mean, she's just a fraudster. She's just a fraudster. But yeah, no, I don't want these fraudsters and up to no good. Just read what the Hart family facilitated. I don't think so. Nope. Nope. Get away from my children. So I did put that up there, so thank you so much for this, sticking with me tonight so late. And please share this information. If you listen in the morning, please share this information about the uh, Fiscal Huachicol on these rails, these train rails that connect right into the hands of the cartel. And they can do us a lot of damage. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be